Hello everyone, and welcome. Tonight we're going to talk about 2012 and the basic Mayans predictions. And if you're like me, you might have not paid much attention to all the hype and so on about 2012. You know, they come out with one thing after another. It's like the Y2K. Do y'all remember the Y2K? And the world was going to have all these problems. And for some reason, it's always one thing after another. And so I decided, I'm not going to live my life by fear every single day and die 1,000 deaths every day by all kinds of fears. So I just kind of said, if the stars are going to line up or whatever, let it happen. I can't stop it anyway. But I'll tell you something interesting. I was at the bookstore, excuse me, I was at the bookstore looking for some kind of a spiritual book, and I came across a book called let me show it to you, The Orion Prophecy. And, I thought to myself, 2012, I'd never heard of the Orion prophecy. I've heard of the Mayan prophecy and Aztec prophecy, but 2012 and the Orion prophecy, I said, well, let me just look through this book a little bit and see what it says. It says, will the world be destroyed in 2012? Prophecies from the Maya and the old Egyptians. So I was looking through this book, and I'm going to tell you, that's why I'm making this video tonight. It changed my mind. I say that this is the greatest book written on 2012 because there's a lot of people mentioning certain things like the stars lining up, the sun will be lined up with in the center of our zodiac, the 12 signs of the zodiac, and that's significant. And then NASA is claiming right now that there are sunspots and solar flares happening a little bit more than normal. They're a little bit worried, and there are other predictions that people are thinking about. But this book put it all together, and that's why I want to explain. I want to tell you about this book in a nutshell tonight, in the next 5-6 minutes. Okay. Basically, let me tell you it like this, that there have been people like Nostradamus, Egner Casey, and Mother Shipton. She was around in the 1400s. And they have all made these predictions of the end of the world, and some of them even mentioned 2012. But those types of people, they're like clairvoyants, and they see like from the other side, maybe from the spirit world. And I understand that their predictions and timing is not exact, because there is really no time in the spirit world. So they can see something that might happen, but they can't really tell you the day or the month or the year. And so I'm not concerned with that type right now. But I am interested in the Mayans, the Aztecs, and types like that, because they use more of a precise mathematical calculation. What's it called? Oh my God, I forgot the name. Let me see if I can find it here. It's called. I'll find it later. Anyway, it's a mathematical calculation of some type, and even today, our calendar is based on it. Our minutes, our seconds, our minutes, our hours, our days, our weeks, our months, our years are all based on what the Atlantean people discovered, and they moved on. Believe it or not, the Atlanteans, according to this book, the Atlantis people are actually the Egyptians, the leftovers of the Atlanteans. Before Atlantis went under, they got on ships and moved to Egypt, and they know this by the hieroglyphics that were all over the walls, things like this. Let me see how we can see this. These little hieroglyphics that are all over paintings and walls in Egypt and so on. They actually show ships and boats, and they made these boats and they sailed from this big flood that came on the earth, and they became the Egyptians. Now this book describes that the Atlantis math and calculations is identical to the Egyptians. They followed the same math, and so did the Mayans. So that's why I like this book, because he was able to break many codes: the Mayan code, the Atlantis code, the Orion code, and also the Dresdon codex code. And he does it by all this mathematical calculations. If any of you guys are mathematicians, you won't, he breaks this down into minute mathematical equations. There's all kinds of mathematical equations in this book, if you can see this. And if you really want to see how he broke the codes, he shows it to you in this book. But basically speaking, here's what basically is going to happen. It's not so much that the stars and the planets are going to line up. Now that may be significant in itself. But what it really is that these Atlanteans and Egyptians and Mayans were able, with precise prediction, to know even hundreds of years in advance when certain things would happen. They're the ones that came up with how long it takes for the sun to go through all 12 signs of the zodiac, 25,920 years. And they knew that Atlantis would go under way ahead of time, and they prepared for it, and they built all these ships. But basically what's going to happen in 2012 is the solar flares on the sun, every so many years they flare up. But every so much in a long time, they really have a big solar flare, massive, almost like volcanoes on the sun, and they shoot out all this massive amount of electricity from the solar flares. One of the solar flares is equal to like 1,000 of our atomic bombs, and they know that on this particular day, on December 22nd or 23rd of 2012, it's going to be exactly as it was when Atlantis went under. Atlantis went under in 9,792 BC, July 27th to be exact. And what happens is the solar flares are so strong that it shoots way out and comes into our Earth's atmosphere, and it affects our gravity, our electromagnetic gravity, and it causes a polar shift. And this has happened quite a few times in the past. And Edgar Casey says that Atlantis will be discovered again. And right now it's buried under the South Pole, but at the time it was not the South Pole. And some of these polar shifts, can be as much as 72 degrees, and a precise amount. It's not just it's a mathematical calculation right to the second and to the degree. So basically what's going to happen is that solar flare is going to cause our gravitational field to get messed up, and it's going to cause a polar shift, and that's going to create havoc on Earth. Now, unless God intervenes, they can predict exactly to the day. The Mayan calendar ends on that day in 2012, and they figure that something major was going to happen. And something's going to happen. I'm not sure what. Once again, I would not live by fear, and I hope you don't either. But it is an interesting book. I hope you buy it just for the fun of it. I don't know these people,